You may have watched a bunch of my videos where I walk around with a set of pruning shears and start just chopping off pieces of my tree, and you think, you are a madman. Why are you doing that? Why don't you let your tree grow? I'm Cameron, welcome back to the Busy Gardener channel. In this video, I'm gonna show you what happens when we make that cut and the results of that cut. Let's get busy. If you've watched my other videos, you might recognize this place. This is my dad's house. You've seen it in other videos like the pruning video on those two trees, those peaches, and you've maybe seen the tour that I did with my dad or the persimmon video. This is my last video here at my dad's. My dad passed away a few months ago, just so tragically, and we're just still so broken up over it. And the home is on the market, and it's gonna go to a new family who are gonna be able to make their memories here. So my dad and I connected so much over trees and the garden. And anyway, this is in honor of you, Dad. Let's go. So the main reason why we want to make pruning cuts is because we want to manage the size of a tree, we want to manage the orientation and shape of the tree, we want to influence how it's going to fruit, and so pruning really matters a whole lot, but it is intimidating to come to a tree that looks like it's very happy just being left on its own and making a cut. This Donut Saturn peach behind me was one that I featured in a video where I cut off an entire half of the tree because it was unbalanced. This thing gave us probably 300 fruit this year. It didn't get thinned. Well, it did once we're getting the fruit to eat. But trees like this for the backyard setting will really benefit from making pruning shaping cuts because we want to keep these trees compact, no higher than we can reach, and providing fruit in a way that is going to provide a lot of fruit without breaking a bunch of branches. Now this peach tree, compared to when I did my pruning like a year ago on this last summer, has put on so much growth, and these branches, it's difficult to see from there, these branches have so much leggy growth on it. They started out and they're just go and go and go and go. And what we want to do is, rather than have long lanky branches like on this little mid-pride peach over here, rather than having these long wispy branches, we want stuff that's more compact, so that way as it grows fruit, you don't just have fruit at the end of a branch that's going to weigh it down and likely break it. What we want is a bunch of little branches that have a ton of fruit on them that don't stress the tree and yet keep the tree in a compact habit, so that way we don't have to navigate this whole canopy. Another reason to prune is because you want light and airflow going through a tree. This is a perfect scenario for a bunch of pests and diseases to just be cultivated in there. There's nothing blowing them out. There's nothing disinfecting it by shining light on it. And so this is like a pests and diseases dream tree. So now I want to show you the type of cut that we would make and then show you the result of what that cut actually does on another tree. Okay, so on the Saturn Donut Peach, this is a great example. This one little branch right here, I don't know if you can see it, it starts all the way there and one single branch is trying to make its way all the way out here. But what happens is that when this gets fruit on it, it's going to be weighing down way out here. It's not going to have a ton of fruit by, along the branch, or even if it does, you just have one branch worth. And so this is just going to spell trouble for us because this tree is going to get bigger and bigger. And we don't want it bigger and bigger, 20 feet tall and 20 feet round. We want it at a manageable size. And so by coming through here and about maybe half off of this one, I like to feel where the tree and branch is kind of spindly. And once it kind of firms up, so I probably would make a cut at this outer growing bud. And that way the branches will ideally spring from this and point out. If we take one bud that's going into the middle of the tree, then we end up with a situation where now the branches are growing in toward the middle of the tree. We don't want that. So in this case, this bud is going to grow out here, and we think that there are going to be multiple buds that come out, or multiple branches that come out of this one spot. You see here, there are a couple of buds just waiting to bloom for us. Here's a fantastic example of a tree that has the weight at the tips of the branches and what that does. This Hachia persimmon has a bunch of beautiful new growth, a ton of fruit. I don't think I've ever seen this tree more loaded than this. And so those pruning cuts that I made last season created a bunch of new growth, and persimmon grow on new growth, so we have a ton of fruit, but that's creating a ton of weight. You don't have to look very far to just see these poor branches just leaning over from the weight of the fruit. So imagine that rather than having fruit way out here at the end of this branch, we instead made a cut way back here and had additional branching happen out here. That way the weight of the fruit would be about halfway along there, and that's where it'd be fruiting as opposed to way down there on this poor branch. When I see a branch like this, I know why they call it a weeping habit, because if you were weighed down like this, you'd be weeping too. Hey, as I walk over to the tree, I want to show you, on a scale of 1 to 10, how intimidating is pruning to you? 1 is, give me the shears and let me at it. A 10 is, I never ever want to make a cut on my tree, ever, please. And so put that in the comments below. Also, now would be a great time to hit the subscribe button and the like button. Would so appreciate that. I went to town on this cherry. I went through and tipped pretty much every branch that I could find. Everything that was long and wispy, everything that was wispy, I took off, so that way it left the more sturdy wood that hopefully was going to branch off. Let me show you where that's happened. So this long branch here is a great example of the type of branch that I cut previously. See how it's kind of long and spindly? I probably would have taken and made that cut down here somewhere to an outer facing bud. See, that's where there's a little more integrity in that branch, and then wanting that to branch out from there. Let me show you where I made that cut on here and what happened. Here's where I made a cut. And look at what happened. The resulting branching pushed out. So this branch pushed out, this little branch pushed out. Let's look at this one here, where I made this cut. This branch bushed out, and this one bushed out. Same thing is happening pretty much at every single cut. You see a bunch more aggressive growth just behind or below where I made that cut. So here's one. Now look, now we've got 2 branches. So instead of one long spindly branch going way out, we now have these 2 branches that are going to provide a fruiting scaffolding for us. This one's even more exciting. I made a single cut right here, and I have 3 branches. 1, 2, 3, and that's going to provide a platform for a ton of cherries. Here you see the cut right here, and you see 1, 2, 3 branches. Same thing happened here. Made 1 cut back here, and now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 really prominent branches coming off of this one as opposed to 1 long spindly one. One other benefit aside from just the size of the tree is that the more branches you have out, when these things flower, they're just booming with blooms. And that is another reason you just get these puffballs, gorgeous flowers on these trees. So the cuts that I would make, so you see I made the original cut here, and there's this longer one here and that one going off there. I would do a tipping cut right here at this outer growing bud, and that way, either that or even down here, because we're really wanting to go for bushy. Imagine if I had 2 more branches that branched off of this and 2 more branches that branched off of that one. Now in the span where there would have just been 1 long branch, we're gonna have, what, 8 little smaller branches, and all of those are gonna flower and fruit for us. Okay, so have I convinced you yet? Are you still afraid to make these cuts? I have a bunch of pruning videos I'm going to put right here so that way you can see some other examples, more hands-on examples of exactly which cuts to make. And so whether you got 1 tree to prune in your orchard or garden or 500, until next time, stay busy.